Hi everyone! So, a while back I saw Unity's demo of Book of the Dead, and I immediately knew one thing. Damn, I want to be able to make graphics like this. So, I created the Unity project, selected HDRP, and I got stuck. I was unable to do anything, nothing was explained, and the official documentation wasn't much help at the time. So, I abandoned it and decided to leave the HDRP to those big companies and game studios. But about 3 weeks ago, on September the 10th, I've got an idea for a game. I wanted it to have photorealistic graphics, or at least as close as I could get them to be. I don't want to tell you what exact game I'm going to make, not to raise your expectations, so all you should know for now is that the level is set in Siberia in an abandoned town. There are a few segments of the level, or locations: the camp, the workshop, a pond, the shack, a lumber mill, and two outposts near the roads coming to the town. The place is surrounded by a forest. You can see the full map overview on the screen right now. Today, I'm going to show you how I made the first section, the camp. There are also a few rules that I want to apply to this project. First, only CC0 or self-made assets are allowed. Second, can't switch to another render pipeline. And the last one, the project must build for all standalone platforms, that is, Windows, Linux, and Mac. This video is going to be more like a time-lapse of level design, but I'll also be sharing some tips that I wish I knew when I was starting the project. I began the same as I did in 2018 by creating a new Unity project using the HD render pipeline template. I deleted all the assets and I f***ed up. It looks like it didn't get more intuitive than it was 2 years ago. I'm just going to skip my first 3 attempts and get to the one in which I understood how things work a little. Oh, did I say 3 attempts? I actually meant 19, but 94.7% of them were unsuccessful. So anyway, I did some sketches while at school and started modeling some assets in Blender. I began by making the wall surrounding the area. It took me some more time because while placing it, I got an idea for a handy Unity extension that would let the user import the materials from ccotextures.com with only a few clicks. Creating it took ages, but I've succeeded and it's currently available on my GitHub page as a Unity package. After making the walls, it was time to create the building. There were 2 on the plans, but eventually I settled on one. So I open up Blender once again. Stop! Tip number 1. Use Pro Builder for not very complex buildings. If the building you're trying to create is not complicated from the architectural point of view, it's a lot better to utilize the built-in modeler. This will allow you to modify it if you want to change some things later on. There's even a tutorial on creating houses with interior made by Unity. The link is in the description. The next thing I made was a tent. It is a pretty simple mesh with the cloth component added to it. We'll get back to it later. I also added a campfire. There's a helpful add-on for Blender that allows you to generate rocks. It's often convenient, so I recommend you turn it on in the settings if you're using the software. One of the most critical things in making a forest look and feel like a real forest is the trees. But trees are complex. They are a little like fractals, but they are in no way perfect nor straightforward. They also need to have correctly shaped trunk and branches so they look convincing. They even have leaves. Creating such elaborate meshes would be a nightmare if anyone would try doing it manually, so instead I decided to use a tree generation software. There are a lot of programs that allow you to create photoreal trees, the most known one being SpeedTree. It is an excellent program, but it has one major downside. It costs a lot. And I mean really a lot. I don't think it's really worth the price, but the alternatives are really underwhelming. The best one in my opinion is TreeIt. Next in the ranking there is Blender's Sapling add-on. There are some more free tree creators, but the ones that I mentioned are the closest you can get to a professional level for free. I've decided to use speech tree because I have already used it a little and it also has a well-established and helpful community. I'm not a professional, but I did my best and managed to create something that more or less resembles a pine tree. Now it was time to import it into Unity. It should be pretty straightforward as the program has an export to Unity button. Okay, this wasn't as easy as I initially thought. Speech tree's export was made for the standard render pipeline, but I'm using the HDRP and cannot really switch back. The materials can be easily ported over, but you unfortunately don't get the benefits of built-in ones, including wind. I could theoretically create my own shaders, but I am a total newbie to the shader graph and all I was able to make is this small leaf sway effect, and I can't say that I'm not proud of it. So now it's time to create some variation and import them into Unity. I've decided to only have 5 variants. I think it's enough for a prototype and people won't notice anyway. I don't have to import the materials 5 times though, as I can reuse the existing ones. All I have to do is select the tree and drag and drop the materials, right? Wrong! It's a lot of work and it's mostly unnecessary. Instead, it's better to utilize presets. They allow you to assign settings with only 3 clicks, which is handy if you have to do it for multiple objects. After that, I created several rocks using the rock generator and placed them all over the level. It's not really important to have a lot of assets. For stones, you can just scale and rotate them to make them look unique. When scaling things, remember to examine the textures, because they sometimes can be messed up or scratched. Remember the campfire from earlier? I forgot to add particles, so I created them using the new visual effect graph. Yeah. It's more flexible than Unity's particle system and can utilize the GPU more, increasing the performance. I may create a tutorial for it later in case anyone would like to have a similar one. I also made some decorations, including the interior for the house. I added this wood storage that I made in Blender. I used physics to lay out the bark pieces and even rendered this cool little animation that I find oddly satisfying. I was almost done, so I decided to check if everything compiles without errors. And sure enough, it threw a lot of errors because me, right? I looked for the solution for hours and even tried upgrading Unity to a newer version. Nothing was working, and then I thought, wasn't there like a beta version of the HD render pipeline? And of course, there was, hidden in this subsection of the HDRP package. I upgraded the versions and now I just have one question. Why? Why did the Unity team release HDRP version 8.2 as stable? It has a lot of bugs and is literally unusable. So another tip here, use the beta version of packages because they are often more stable. After I upgraded it, I still encountered some errors and bugs. The cloth was invisible and built, but this was due to the meshes not having the read enabled. Shader compile was taking significantly longer, but I couldn't find a fix for that. And some shaders become incompatible, but it was pretty easy to fix. The last thing I did was that I made it into a minigame. The thing has nothing to do with the final product that I'm going to make, but it's a sufficient excuse to walk around the level. Its primary purpose was to get some feedback, especially on the visual side. The minigame is very simple. You have to find 3 objects related to communism. I added some sound effects and made the player a bean, instead of a flying camera taken directly from the example. You can download the file from the link in the description. I think this wraps up the video. I'm still working on Time Slicer and this project is not going to replace it. Creating it took me a lot of time, but I've gained some knowledge and the video for the next area should come out hopefully next month. I don't know if it's going to look similar to this one or I'll take another approach, but if you don't want to miss it, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you guys in the next video. Bye.